In August 1959, there was a bit of a revolution in the automotive industry, and it was called the Mini. The Mini 850 came out in 1959. I can't believe it. Makes it fairly old. Yet it really was a revolutionary car. I mean, it had the transverse east-west engine, front-wheel drive. That wasn't so revolutionary, but the whole package was just amazing. And then the following year, John Cooper got hold of it, and the Mini Cooper came out. The result was that the Mini Cooper S started winning rallies all over the place, and that put the Mini on the map, and they sold like hotcakes. So the engine was a fairly conventional 1275cc in the Cooper S, and had larger valves and high compression head and twin carbies, so it was pretty hot for its day, but it was a pain to tune. The distributor's right down there, and you could try to get to the points, and it was just about impossible. The carbies were no better. Twin SUs on the back, they had the mixture adjustment screw right up in behind there, so an absolute pain to keep this car tuned. Now recently I went to a motor show and saw for the first time the new Mini, and it made me think about the evolution of the automotive industry. How far have we come? And a great way to compare that was to look at the original Mini and the new Mini. There has been a great deal of evolution, and surprisingly, the thing most responsible for that evolution is the silicon chip and software, because nowadays that makes so much possible. It makes the tuning of the engine something you just don't worry about. You can change fuels, the engine will automatically adjust for it. It also controls the braking, and in this case of this car, the traction system. So much of the safety features and the engine management in a modern car is controlled by the silicon chip. This is what it's all about. The spark is controlled by the computer. The fuel injection, which we can't see, is controlled by a computer. And over here, if you have a look at this, this is all the braking and the active stability controls. And that is all controlled by a computer. Inside, the airbags are controlled by a computer. There's an accelerometer that will tell you which way you're rolling over and how to deploy the airbags. The whole package is under control of a microprocessor. This switch here is the automatic stability control. You can turn it on and off. I would just leave it on because it works extremely well. And what this does is if you're going too fast around the corner, it'll back the engine off for you. It does its best to try and keep you where you are steering and keep you on the road. Obviously it's got anti-locking brakes, and the combination of those gives you a lot of stability, a lot of extra safety. The steering is power assisted, of course, but it's driven by an electric motor, and the advantage of that is if you're standing still, the steering's normally heavy, but the electric motor applies more force to the power steering and makes it very light. Yet when you're driving, say, on a straight road at highway speeds, it backs off, so it's much harder to steer, as it should be for safety reasons. It's not quite as good as the original Mini, and the old joke there was that you could run over a 20-cent piece and tell whether it's heads or tails. It's not quite that responsive, but it is surprisingly responsive. Now there's only one thing that bugs me about this car, and that's where the speedo is. The steering wheel cuts across the face of the instrument, and you can't read anything between 80 and about 120. The tacho they've put in the middle, and they've obviously done that to make it look like the original Mini, but it shouldn't be there. Both instruments should be up in front of the driver and not masked by the steering wheel, so that you can read them. Now the gearbox in the original Mini Cooper S was fantastic. It had a very long first gear and then
3 close ratio gears after that, so 4-speed all synchronised gearbox. This is a 6-speed gearbox, and it's fast. Now in this story we set out to see how far we've come since the first Mini came out, since the 50s. How much the car has evolved. And, you know, I thought it was a good idea to look at the 2 Minis, the old and the new. What I discovered surprised me, because what is responsible for the evolution is the silicon chip, and most of what has changed the average motorist wouldn't have a clue about. They don't see it, it just happens. The traction control may have just saved their life and they wouldn't know it. So it has actually been fairly dramatic. The evolution is there, but almost unseen unless you know quite a lot about cars. So the difference between the old Mini and the new Mini is actually quite dramatic. It's chalk and cheese. They're similar in that they handle very well and so forth, but they are actually totally different cars. And I have to say that this new Mini is still a worthwhile successor, because it still handles like it's on rails, and most importantly, it's fun, just like the original Mini Cooper.